brought to you by Skillshare. The first 500 people to sign up using the link in the description will receive a 2-month free trial. While working on his magnum opus, Kanye West was brewing a storm in between the sessions for My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. It would be a project just as large in scope and even bigger in pure star power. This time, Kanye was tag teaming with his big brother. Jay-Z was working on his 12th studio album. Upon agreeing to work with Kanye on a joint project, they met up at various times to record in recording studios and hotel rooms across the globe. They were putting together a special project, piece by piece, patiently building momentum. What was originally meant to be an EP turned into a monumental joint album between Kanye and Jay. Brimming with experimental production, lush samples, and an incredible sense of scale, the album was an announcement that Kanye and Jay-Z were the kings of their domain. The project demanded reverence, as the album would be called Watch the Throne.
So the two of you coming together to make this album.
Yeah.
Good Lord. What kind of pressure?
I guess a bit after we started it, but I don't look at it like that. Like, when you make music, you make your music to try to, you're against history, you're against what's current, and you're against your past work. But as far as pressure of what it's gonna sound like, you try not to really let that affect you.
The making of the album reflected the luxurious aesthetic that Kanye and Jay were pushing. Luxury rap, as it would be called. From art and history references to their thoughts on European lifestyle and what it means to be rich and black in America, Watch the Throne would prove itself to be a project with more substance than initially thought. But more on that later. Back to the hotels. Jay and Kanye recorded tracks in some of the most glamorous hotels. Sometimes A-list celebrities would be found among them. The music sounded expensive too. With samples that weren't hidden or repurposed beyond recognition, you had Kanye sampling Otis Redding so obviously that they actually had to give Otis a feature credit on one of the biggest songs off of the album. Those expenses would even cause future tension during production.
Kanye came into this business on my label, so I've always been like his big brother, and we're both entertainers. So always been like a little underlying competition there with your big brother there, and we both love and respect each other's art too. So it's like everyone wants to be the greatest in the world. You know what I'm saying? And then there's like a lot of other factors that play in it, but we're gonna always be good.
But the key to making the album great didn't just simply lie in samples and drums. Jay-Z said that if the project were to be done right, both him and Ye needed to be in the same studio together. They weren't going to be emailing files and sending hard drives, piecing the album little by little. If it was going to be announced as a joint effort, it was going to be created as a joint effort. Kanye and Jay-Z explored the experiences of the brand new world that they were in, far from their humble beginnings. These experiences framed the story of the album. There were complications that came with the life of fame and fortune, but they would be lying if they said it wasn't full of great opportunities. Kanye was traveling the world, spending a lot of time in Paris, studying fashion and working on his own collections. Jay had been living the dream as a successful businessman who could put down music and not lose a thing in the process. It was clear that he was making music for the love of it. Jay didn't need to fight to get rich anymore. And that place of privilege for both rappers gave them a unique bird's-eye view on the life that they left behind, as well as the new life that they exist in now.
Negative message or a positive message? The positive message being you're black and you should be more proud of it. The negative message is, who are you kidding? You can't escape this by joining a private country club and playing golf.
Right.
Which message feels the right?
They're both dual messages at the same time.
Kanye, I've seen him, he's really like a brother to me. I've seen him from the beginning to where he is now. And to see him as a producer and how he's grown as a producer and an artist, for me, on another level, it's enjoyable. Like I'm watching the guy who, I pretty much mentored, become his own guy with his own opinion.
In anticipation of the new project, Kanye wanted to release something to get the fans going. At the hesitation of Jay, they released a single titled H.A.M, or Hard as a Motherfucker. The skittering electronic synth that opened the song, followed by Kanye and Jay's money-dripping braggadocio and Gregorian chants, just didn't sit well with audiences. It wasn't a bad song. However, it was far from what fans expected to hear as a first offering.
So we have a certain expectation.
I think you have to have a bit of arrogance to say that, you know, this is gonna be good.
Yeah.
It's hard to match the anticipation on something like that.
Yeah.
Jay-Z and Kanye is gonna make it out. This shit better be the most. And that was my reasoning for telling him, let's not put out H.A.M. Let's not put out any single, put the album out. Let's put the album out and let people get the body of work. Because if you give them one thing to judge and nitpick apart, it's me and you.
But it didn't kill interest in the project, so Jay and Kanye knew they could move forward and complete it. The iconic and menacing first track of the album, No Church in the Wild, was produced by 88 Keys. After going through a list of his own beats on SoundCloud, Kanye resonated with the main instrumental that laid the foundation for No Church. West requested an additional kick, strings, and a heavier bass line to improve the track. 88 Keys spoke of Frank Ocean's own contribution to the song. He said that Frank originally had a humorous spoken word bit to intro the album. It didn't make the cut, of course. But Ocean's contribution is still the spine of the song. Having come off of his critically acclaimed mixtape Nostalgia Ultra, Ocean was winning fans left and right, including West, Beyonce, and Jay. Frank would also lend his voice to the song Made in America, which we will discuss a little later. No ID, famous producer and Kanye's mentor, had some issues with the creation of the album. The album's ambitious sound, full of orchestral and electronic elements, wasn't something he was in the place to create at the time. Feeling that the album lacked what made Kanye and Jay classic artists, he suggested that there be a classic Kanye sample song, the kind where West would be at the boards by himself, chopping infectious samples like he did when he started his career.
Reason why I sat there and focused on that Otis beat. When people didn't like H.A.M, and Miami Heat was losing, and I'm in the Mercer, and they literally write on the screen who's watching the Throne and show a picture of LeBron and stuff. And I said, I gotta watch out Throne like it made Otis, right? And said, this I know, Niggas in Paris doesn't work without Otis. You have to bring the flowers to the door first. And we delivered Otis.
When noticing Otis on the track list, the song says featuring Otis Redding due to the fact that his voice is the heart and soul of the beat. Repetitive and walking the line between infectious and obnoxious, Otis was like classic Kanye with a twist. Minimal and bouncy, Kanye and Jay-Z waxed poetic over the soulful grunts of Otis Redding. The music video was directed by Spike Jonze, filmed in slow motion with the speed of the song doubled so that both West and Jay can appear to be rapping in slow motion. The video features them completely tearing up a Maybach and turning it into a fire-powered vehicle looking like something out of Mad Max. At the end of the video, they assured everyone that the car was donated, but the video was still a statement. They were showing that their wealth had become so grand that even the most valuable objects to them were just that. Objects, things that could be repurposed and destroyed. Audiences resonated with Otis much more than H.A.M. Naturally, two strong-willed artists like Kanye and Jay would experience creative differences. Some of these differences led to intensely passionate arguments. Jay would see it merely as a sign that they were pushing each other towards something great.
I heard that.
You and Kanye had a fight, right?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yes.
There's allegedly problems because of the creative differences and because he wants to spend $1 gazillion.
Yeah.
And you're like, yo, chill out.
I kind of want to spend $1 gazillion. I think they got it backwards, but it's all good.
Really?
Yeah. Why not?
I would think you'd be the frugal of the pair.
Well, you know, I made it, you know.
When you have James Brown, Otis Redding, Nina Simone, and a scene from the film Blades of Glory as some of your main samples, the budget begins to inflate quickly. However, the energy that their voices brought to the production proved to be worth it. Niggas in Paris had 4 producers, with the most memorable contribution being a sample provided by Hit Boy. a sharp synthesized loop proved to be the perfect robotic melody to wake the club up. Who Gon' Stop Me was unique in that it sampled a dubstep song by Flux Pavilion. Dubstep had just broken out into the mainstream at the time. Kanye, Zach Passe, and Mike Dean had an interesting twist on the genre, causing Flux Pavilion himself to give the song praise. Zach Passe, who also produced Made in America, studied the music of Queen to gain inspiration for Who Gon' Stop Me. He wanted to produce a song that had the power of an anthemic Queen record, worthy of arenas. He also envisioned it becoming one of the Watch the Throne tour's opening songs. His vision came true, as it was the second song on the tour's set list. Producer S1 spoke of the recording environment for the album.
I was in London with Kanye and Jay. We were in the studio together. Mike Dean was with us. Ryan Leslie was out there with us. Beyonce was there with us. So we were in this room, and No ID was with us as well. So we were in this room together, and then right in the room, like on this step, doing our thing, making beats. So we would play beats for Kanye and Jay.
Gotta Have It was produced by the Neptunes, with a healthy dose of Kid Cudi's hums running through the bass line. New Day featured co-production by RZA himself, sampling Nina Simone's rendition of Feeling Good. In New Day, Kanye and Jay-Z ruminate on the heavy responsibility of fatherhood. Jay's father left him, and Kanye's father was distant after his parents divorced. Kanye and Jay had not had their children yet, so they speak to their future sons. Kanye, in a very introspective verse, says he will never let his son have an ego. He also says that he will not let his son make all of the mistakes that he has, including not making his mother move to LA, unable to take the pressure. In this moment, he switched the song to his own perspective. He began thinking like a father, and then transitioned to seeing the world as a son. Kanye has always expressed a sense of responsibility for his mother's death, feeling that the world of Hollywood wasn't good for her. Jay gives advice to his future son, who was born into fame. He apologizes in advance for the future paparazzi pursuits and tabloid noise. Ironically, their first children with their wives would be daughters. Over the course of the album, both artists cover issues of racism, murder, wealth disparity, fatherhood, death, and a litany of first world problems. At the time, the majority of audiences were more focused on the subjects of decadence and wealth for better or worse.
And I think a lot of the subject now, people look back and be like, oh,
Yeah.
they talking about black
They
excellence.
misconstrued it too.
They talk about this isn't about some capitalist, the whole thing, the Givenchy cover, things like that. That's why opinions could sway more than ever. When you get behind it and you hear those records, Welcome to the Jungle and Black X and all these other records, and then
songs like Paris, Otis, Why I Love You, and Murder to Excellence all reference the importance of wealth among the marginalized of all colors. Though they acknowledge the reality of systematic oppression against black people, they also refuse to let it get in the way of their pursuit of freedom. The album takes a darker turn, as the tracks Welcome to the Jungle and Murder to Excellence focus on mortality. While you could consider the songs to be conscious, there are no answers given. The most memorable moment of social commentary on the album is Kanye's lyrics during the song Murder to Excellence.
So Kanye's role, right? What did Tupac say? I may not change the world, but I'll spark the brain that will. Sparking the brain that will change the world is a thing. It's a vocation. So I ain't mad at Kanye. Well, he ain't leading marches. That ain't his role. Black excellence? People who are dying in Chicago? He did more to publicize the black loss of life than a bunch of news reports.
Jay and Kanye constantly make mention of the importance of financial freedom, especially in a system that has made it hard for minorities to acquire wealth, despite even some of the best and most legitimate efforts. There's an acknowledgement that Jay makes in the excellence half of the song Murder to Excellence. He mentions a few rich black celebrities, including billionaire Oprah Winfrey. Yet, he hopes to see more in the future, feeling no need to settle for anything less. While $1 billion is a high mountain to climb, Jay is saying that the opportunities for a black man or woman to reach those heights should be more available without suppression. But if someone like him could escape the streets and reach the highest heights, there should be hope for many. Both artists understand the struggle to achieve financial freedom. In the song Why I Love You, which is the last track on Watch the Throne, Kanye and Jay tell stories of using their finances to uplift the people in their lives, only for a lot of advice to go on deaf ears and money to be taken for granted.
We don't got it like that. When I tell you only 7 black billionaires, look at that marginalization, and we feel like we happy because me and Rick Ross got a Maybach, or I got a Sprint outside, or a couple of us, or they put a black president. Man, let me tell you something about George Bush and oil money and Obama and no money. People want to say Obama can't make these moves or he's not executing. That's because he ain't got those connections. Black people don't have the same connection as oil people. You know we don't know nobody that got a nice house. You know we don't know nobody with paper like that we could go to when we down. You know that could just put us back or put us in a corporation. You know we ain't in a situation. Can you guarantee that your daughter could get a job at this radio station? But if you own this radio station, you could guarantee that. That's what I'm talking about.
Make sure we taking care of business. Make sure we pushing this culture forward. Make sure we leaving. You got in. Yeah. You got in. Make sure you leave that door wide open for the next generation.
Kanye, in all of his provocative nature, desired to have the word nigga in every title of every song on the album. For obvious reasons, this never came to fruition. But when songs like Niggas in Paris exist, the brashness of its approach is shoving that word into the face of those who created the word.
Why do you think the song Niggas in Paris is called Niggas in Paris? Because niggas was in Paris.
Now here in this country, we've got something called a nigga. I've always known, I had to know by the time I was 17 years old. What you were describing was not me, and what you were afraid of was not me. It had to be something else. You had invented it, so it had to be something you were afraid of. And you invested me with it.
Telling the story of one who hustled crack and another who hustled beats allowed Jay and Kanye to be heroic and relatable at the same time. But of course, Kanye and Jay-Z also set aside time to let us know what it's like to live on top of the world. Jay talks about having high taste and acknowledging that many black people might be shamed as trying to be European by having such taste. Jay-Z says that way of thinking is dead to him.
It's okay to think. It's okay to be smart. You know, there's a time when people was like, you talking white. It's like, what does that even mean? I know words. Intelligence is not a tribute to color. You know, so I have an obligation to further the conversation in all ways. You know, our stature in America, our emotional maturity, and so on and so forth.
Jay-Z's drug-dealing past has been an accepted part of his narrative since the beginning of his career. Seeing a black man make it as far as he has while surviving a life of crime has been almost fantastical. Everything about his life predicted he would be either dead or in prison at a young age, even down to the choices he made. But whichever way he maneuvered in order to get a taste of the legal American dream as well, has been the great scandal of his life.
Your husband was a drug dealer. For 14 years, he sold crack cocaine.
The spirit of Watch the Throne is not made complete if only measured by its criticism of America and not of its ambition to create their own American dream that follows their own rules.
We have people in jail while people are making billions of dollars off weed. Like, you know, everybody cool with that shit. They had like some ladies on like the Today Show talking about weed makes them better parents, and I'm like, oh shit.
Jay-Z's stance on drug dealing has changed since the days of his youth.
One of the things you rap about also is the pain you caused the people you sold drugs to. What would you say to that?
I guess that conversation would definitely take ownership for my part in, you know, the part I played in occupying that space. Because knowing what I know now, you know, you can't sacrifice others for your life. You know, there's a karmic debt that has to be paid. I definitely want everyone to know that.
Made in America is a haunting and reflective song, with a soulful hook by Frank Ocean. Frank lists the great heroes of the past, from Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife Coretta, to Mother Mary and baby Jesus. The song gives reverence to all that came before them, paving the way for a better life.
Kanye West and Jay-Z. When I study rap, which I study the way that I would study Shakespeare, I apply the same quality of engagement as I would if I were studying the texts of a 16th century metaphysical poet, because it demands that. Shakespeare, John Donne, they could rely on their readers getting the classical references, getting the references to other contemporary poets. And so it is with the audience of Watch the Throne of Kanye West and Jay-Z's audience. They will study the lyrics. They will get the connections. These guys love to intoxicate their audience with layers upon layers of multiple meanings. They require of you as an audience member to hold these layers at once in your head.
Like, it was the poets that's explaining the emotions and making these songs that people are like, oh, that's what I feel.
In the song Why I Love You, the two artists meditate on loyalty and betrayal. Jay raps from a paranoid perspective, illustrating his concern that those he helps will betray him or worse. All this wealth and fame was now costing them their peace of mind. Watch the Throne never really answers the question of whether wealth truly leads to happiness or not, as both of these artists are currently in that pursuit. But they also shed light on the wealth found in the value of human life from so many perspectives.
The most beautiful things are not these objects. The most beautiful things are inside.
Italian fashion designer Riccardo Tisci designed the cover art and accompanying photographic visuals for Watch the Throne. With the main cover appearing to be made of gold, the texture and design gave it a sheen that stood out. Other accompanying images were designed, with one of them being a repurposed American flag. There were 3 music videos that accompanied the album: Otis, directed by Spike Jonze, No Church in the Wild by Romain Gavras, and Niggas in Paris by Kanye West. The Paris video featured a kaleidoscopic collection of the Throne's live performance of the song.
And then you put that tour and that experience that people had, and it's like, man, this I don't know if we ever gonna see this again.
Like, shots of the lasers that are happening that end up on the screen also. Well, we're not gonna put atmosphere on the screen.
They're both two stories.
Yeah, and it's like, here are the products of the
Here's the products.
Stories.
Luxury rap. The fact that these guys are kind of like the first rich, black, self-made from poverty, from the ghetto of America.
We often use the words grand stage too loosely. A place where tens of thousands of eyes are fixed on one stage. But what if there were 2 stages? And what if these stages rose up out of the ground? Or what if there was a giant mosh pit, or lasers, giant barking dogs, and sharks roaring through screen projections? The words grand stage doesn't feel like an exaggeration in the slightest. With the creative genius of stage designer S. Devlin, Kanye and Jay saw their images of size and wonder taken to new heights.
This image, for me, is the essence of the Watch the Throne project. 2 men at the peak of their creative powers, elevated on thrones, up there. We look up to them, we recognize their authority, and yet, as audience members, we're also putting ourselves in their position. They're still tiny, they're still human-sized, they're vulnerable, they're exposed. There are predators within these giant cubes, dangerous beasts, sharks. There's no handrail up there, they're 5 meters up. As an audience member, the design is happening as you hold those 2 perspectives in tension.
I'm living inside of a dream world. To me, don't nothing matter to me except for the people and the way I can affect them. I almost lost my life. I lost my mama. I went from like Jay-Z being my idol, still is my idol, to him being across the stage on me. So I know that anything is possible.
Niggas in Paris was being performed over and over again as an encore, with it being performed 11 times in a row during their last stop in Paris. The floor erupted into giant mosh pits with the crowd rapping along to every word. There hasn't been another album like Watch the Throne. The unique chemistry between 2 larger-than-life artists can't be replicated. Audiences are still clamoring for a sequel to the album, cementing Watch the Throne as a fine addition to hip-hop history.
My story started out it depends on how far you want to go back. Chicago, where I grew up, Atlanta, where I was born, where my mother met my father, or back to when we were first brought over here in boats. or back to when we used to be kings and queens. You know, it's funny how black people always say, we used to be kings and queens, but really, if we're the ones over here, we were the ones sold by the kings and queens. So that shows you we came from nothing to something. Like Big says, whoever thought that hip-hop would take it this far, to go from being sold by your own people to selling music to your own people. But anyway, whether I say something that's right or the wrongest thing you've ever heard, it's always from my heart, it's always from my soul, it's always me.
Thanks for watching. As a creative who handles several disciplines, I found Skillshare to be a valuable resource. Their premium membership gives you unlimited, high-quality classes taught by experts in their field, so you can improve your skills, unlock new opportunities, and do the work you love. If you make music and this video has inspired you to better your craft, then you might like Young Guru's official classes on mixing, mastering, and recording. If you're interested in my line of work, there are many classes on video editing and motion graphics from beginner to advanced levels. The programs that I use are Adobe Premiere and Adobe After Effects. There are several classes breaking down each of these programs. Skillshare is also more affordable than most leading platforms out there. An annual subscription with Skillshare is less than $10 a month. The first 500 people to sign up using the link in the description will receive a 2-month free trial to Skillshare. It's a great deal that will give you plenty of time to learn and discover a new passion.